Hi Josh. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to do this video response. I, of course, left that comment last evening in regards to your video about the Kent State shootings, and thank you very much for allowing me to do a video response. I wasn't expecting to do it, but nonetheless, I won't turn down the opportunity. Okay, now, we all know, the historical facts of Kent State, but we have to go deeper than that. Not to ask ourselves whether it was justified or not. Ask yourselves, why were the soldiers there in the first place? Now, we know the official line that there was unrest and disruption and vandalism and hooliganism, easy for me to say, in the town itself. Now, we're going to separate the town from the university, Kent State University, because the protesters were already going on the campus. It was already being initiated, but then some say, "Oh, it spread to in town." No, a bunch of drunks vandalizing stuff doesn't exactly entail protesting. So, you had protests on Kent State University. You had protests going on years before in Berkeley and Stanford in California, in campuses on the East Coast. It wasn't a new thing by any stretch of the imagination. So, why were the soldiers brought to the campus? Good question. Why were they brought with guns against protesters who didn't have guns? Now, part of Josh's video justification for the shootings was that the protesters were throwing excrement, shit, feces, whatever you want to call it, to the soldiers. They were throwing bricks or rocks or concrete slabs or whatever. Okay, let's look at that scenario in itself. If somebody's throwing feces at you, or they're throwing rocks, if they're 5 feet away from you, yeah, that can be painful, and they can throw pretty big rocks and pretty big bricks and concrete slabs at you. But they weren't 5 feet away from you. They were pretty far away from you, actually. So, by nature, whatever's being thrown at you has to be small, has to be light. But nonetheless, they're being thrown at you, right? So, how are you going to respond? Are you going to then shoot them? Well, that's not really a fair fight, How do you justify that? How do you justify shooting with a lethal weapon at somebody who's throwing shit at you? You can't. There's no justification for that. So that in turn leads me to believe that the National Guardsmen who were brought there were ill-equipped, ill-prepared to handle that situation. They were not given sufficient orders to not shoot at the crowd. They were not given orders to shoot above them only, and under no circumstances shoot at them. So they never should have been brought there in the first place. Now, whether they should have been in town is a different matter. I'm not going to dispute that side of the story. I'm disputing that they should not have been brought to the campus, where the protests were already ongoing. They were already established as peaceful protests. Now, let's look at it one step further. Do people have the right to protest? Sam had left a comment on Josh's video that people don't have the right to protest. They absolutely have the right to protest. It is guaranteed under our Constitution that they have the right to protest. Our country was founded on protest. Our country has the principles of freedom and protest at its very root, at its very foundation. And to say that people don't have the right to protest, to have freedom of speech, to have freedom of assembly, I'm sorry. That contravenes all the principles of our democracy, of our freedoms, of our hard-earned freedoms. And yet, less than 200 years later, we had Governor Rhodes, then governor of Ohio, and this is what he said. He called the protesters un-American and referred to protesters as revolutionaries set on destroying higher education in Ohio. Un-American. Now, you say, gosh, well, that happened, less than 40 years ago, but wow, we've made a lot of progress since then. Have we? Have we made a lot of progress? I don't think we have. We have just had our national leaders, aka state representative or U.S. representatives, calling some people un-American, anti-American. We have not progressed that far, folks, in 40 years. We are still having this problem with what is patriotic and what is American. But again, let's go back 230 years. Let's go back. Give me liberty or give me death. Don't tread on me. The principles that our freedom, our independence was founded on. And yet we have forgotten that. We have lost that. We have governors who also say they're the worst type of people that we harbor in America. I think that we're up against the strongest, well-trained, militant, revolutionary groups that have ever assembled in America. Are you kidding me? They're a bunch of students peacefully protesting. I mean, talk about taking the situation and blowing it out of proportion. Talk about taking that can of gasoline and just throwing it on that campfire and saying, look, now what are you going to do? We're bringing guns to this protest party. What are you going to do? So that logically tells you that they're trying to control the situation, right? He said, well, that's okay. They can control the situation. But can they? Can they control our democracy? Can they control our freedom? That's a paradox. That's an oxymoron. How do you control freedom? You don't. We have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom to assemble. And yet, all these people want to assemble. And it doesn't stop at Governor Rhodes, then Governor Rhodes of Ohio. It doesn't stop there. It actually started with the Nixon administration. Funny, which has a lot of similarities to our current administration. All about control, a state of paranoia and fear that has developed in this country. The protests throughout the entire country was an embarrassment to the Nixon administration. It was something that it was losing control. But you can't gain control of it. How do you gain control? Anyways, get a little sidetrack there. Anyways, so ask yourselves, folks, why were they there? And was it justified? Absolutely not. If you're calling somebody names and all of a sudden they turn around and stab you, is that fair? No. You know what? That person who stabs you is now guilty of murder. And I'm sorry, those soldiers were ill-equipped to be there. Ill-prepared. They never should have been brought into that scenario on the campus. No way, no how. Absolutely not. And then to shoot on these protesters. And now I can just hear some people saying, well, the protesters may have had guns. Yeah, they may have, but they didn't. And you know what? How people knew they didn't? Because they had already been protesting. It had already been established days before that they were just protesting, voicing their opinions, voicing their God-given freedom, their rights to express themselves. And all you people, and I just shudder at some of these people who say, oh, they don't have the right to protest, or they shouldn't freedom, or it was justified. It wasn't justified. Not even close. Not even close. It's sort of like if somebody's jaywalking, does a police car run them over? No. Find the equivalent. Okay, if they're protesting, you know what? You cut them off. And this had been established already in the campuses in California. You know what? If they want to protest, that is their right. That is their freedom to do so. Give them a forum to do it. Don't bring guns to the party. That doesn't solve any problems, and it makes it worse. And now 4 students were killed because of that. Well, congratulations, Governor Rhodes. Congratulations, President Nixon. You completely took the situation and made it worse. Just because you were embarrassed that you weren't controlling the situation, controlling our freedoms. Enough said. I've already rambled on long enough. But again, thanks, Josh, for allowing me to do this video response. As usual, we can agree to disagree. So, talk to you soon. Bye.